What's going on, party people? This is not an episode, another live stream, if you will, on the Center Hub, both YouTube channel and Twitter page. We are joined. My name is Stephen Bagel. You can follow me on Twitter at the underscore NBAgle. I am joined by Corbin Ford, Conrad Pascal, Julian Mendelson, and we should have Maxwell Geiger coming on shortly. But we're here basically to react to round one of the NBA draft. And, maybe we'll get some predictions for, I know, we're live on Twitter as well if you're watching this on YouTube. But we're here to react to round one and maybe get some analysis on potentially what could happen in round two. Before we get started, very quickly, Corbin, how are you doing today?
Doing all right. Surprised Rasheer Fleming didn't get drafted, but we can talk about that later. Aside from that, actually, no, I'm pissed at Brooklyn, but we'll talk about that later. I'm not doing all right. I'm a little annoyed, but we're here.
Corbin, who is your favorite fit in terms of player to team that happened in the first round?
Kasper Siakachonis in Miami.
Okay. Conrad, how you doing? And answer the same question of who your favorite fit player to team is.
I'm great because it's always nice when something I think maybe could happen happens. When the world is against you. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, we'll get into some of the surprise picks. Even despite my optimism, still a surprise when it happens. But in terms of a fit I like, I know we kind of tease this team a lot, and it's well deserved because of their past draft history. But I really like Noah Senge with the Chicago Bulls.
Okay. Julian, how you doing today, and who's your favorite team and player fit?
Fantastic. I going to said yet.
I didn't hear how you're doing, but then I heard you say player fit, and now I don't know who the player fit is.
Well, what I'm doing.
Okay, Julian is having technical difficulties. Meanwhile, let's add Maxwell. Maxwell, how are you doing today?
Fellas, I am very happy. It is a great day to be a Wizards fan. What a great draft. What a great draft indeed. Top on the moon. On the moon. I came in all day. I was Ace Bailey was, being thrown at my way, the propaganda, who was ranked 7th on my board. Trey Johnson, number 3 on my big board. The player I wanted all along. Golly, I'm going to keep the profanity at a minimum as best as I can. Trey Johnson ended up on the Washington Wizards. Unbelievable, beautiful, and it was poetic. It was wonderful. And then we got Will Riley, gained second pick, trading. What a great draft for Washington Wizards and Will Dawkins. I am elated. What a great night.
For what it's worth, immediately after they drafted Will Riley, I texted Maxwell, said they just got the guys that are 3 and 8 on my board with Trey Johnson and Will Riley. So,
yeah, I'm excited. What a draft.
So, okay. Maxwell, who is your favorite team to player fit?
Ooh, that's a great question. I would say there's a couple. So in the Center Hub mock off season, I don't want to. Can I give this away? Can I give it one?
Give it away.
Okay.
Give it away.
As the Oklahoma City Thunder, I used some draft assets to trade up and take Kaman Maluach. And Sam Presti was like, dude, just hold your breath. He stayed where he was and took Thomas Sorber. Incredible pick. I think that is exactly what the Thunder needed in this draft. I think that's an amazing fit. And I also really love Chase Richardson to Orlando at 25. 2 guys who are kind of outside of the lottery who I really like their fits. Orlando needs a lot of stuff that Chase Richardson is very good to great at as a prospect.
Yeah, Chase Richardson is, correct me if I'm wrong, he wasn't even invited to the green room, if I'm remembering correctly. in terms of green room invites.
I don't think he was.
I don't think he was either.
was not.
Okay. Before we get into anything further, who wants to talk about Hanson Yang? Conrad, I'm going to have you start because you and I believe Wilco, another center contributor, were kind of two of the high guys on. We just lost Maxwell, but he will be back. We also have a special guest backstage who will be joining us momentarily as well. Give me your Hanson Yang to Portland, because obviously Portland had pick 11. They then traded down to pick 16, where they took, I forget, Danny Meringue, I believe, tweeted out. I apologize if I'm misremembering the tweet, but basically said Portland was super high on his passing ability, his IQ, basically comparing to like a Chinese version of Nikola Jokic. What are your thoughts about Hanson Yang going as high as you had him on your board?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's interesting because oftentimes, you know, people say like, hey, you rank this player this high on your board, like, but if you were truly, like, let's say, like, you were employed by the team, would you really have the confidence to actually, you know, recommend that to your general manager or your owner? And I don't know. For me, like I said, I would. I am surprised that someone really did in real life, and I'm surprised that team was actually Portland. You know, now given that they maneuvered their way to 16, but I'm not gonna lie. In terms of the fit, I'm not sure I really see it. I mean, I could justify in the sense of what I was saying on all the podcasts that, you know, we've done together, that, you know, he could be like a really nice change of pace kind of guy, right? Klingon, if you look at him as the typical, like the prototypical drop rim protector and the rim runner, you know, and a guy who just like crashes the offensive glass, cool. But maybe you want someone with a different look, you know, someone who is more of a traditional, like low post threat, a guy who can be an offensive hub. Hanson Yang can do that. You know, he does a lot of that. Great passer, arguably one of the best, if not the best big man passer in this draft class. You know, I had conversations with Wilco about, like, if you really think about it, some of like his peers in terms of just pure skill. I mean, I think his skill level is at their level, if not, you know, arguably more well-rounded. So I am surprised it was Portland who ultimately took him, but I like it. I could see, like, again, you know, Corbin and I were just having conversations about this last night. Like, at what range are you comfortable taking someone who you don't really see being a starter? And I guess that range was beginning somewhere around 16 for Portland, because they're like, hey, this guy is like a high-end backup. And I like it like that. It's just, you know, it's definitely a surprise, even to me, as optimistic as I was.
So I'm going to get to Julian real quick. My first question is, and again, we have a special guest in the back that I'm going to have join momentarily. Biggest winner tonight. I asked because Andrew Schaefer, another contributor to the Center Hub, just in the comments said Jazz, Spurs, Hawks are the winners tonight. Joy, and let's start with you. Let's see if your technical difficulties are working themselves out. Who would you say is the biggest winner in terms of teams tonight?
I would definitely.
Oh no. Sorry, Julian.
He's speechless.
He was speechless.
The team took the words out of his mouth.
But no.
No.
Oh no, this live stream's a disaster. Anyway, join if you. He's on his phone. If you want to try on your laptop again, we can. But no. Okay. Well, we appreciate you coming on. Julian Mendelson, everyone. Go follow him on Twitter at 12jmendel. Meanwhile, I am going to add Upside Swing's very own Stone Hansen. Stone, who is your favorite? I asked everyone when they joined the live stream, who is your favorite team or player to team fit in the first round tonight?
I just tweeted out a list of like 5 that I really like. It's difficult to pick one. I guess I'll go with the highest pick. Carter Bryant to the Spurs at 14, I thought was awesome. I expected him to go higher. I didn't think he'd be there at 14. I think that fit is just fantastic. Defensively, you now have him, Sohan, and Wemby, and you can play just such a different variety of defenses. You can play tons of different coverages, zone, 1-3-1 zones, 2-3 zones, 3-2 zones. I think you can throw a lot of different mix and match stuff in there with switch schemes. There's so many different things you could do with those three in particular, not to mention other assets that they have, but those three really stand out defensively. So I love that pick. I think that was a huge one for me.
So, okay, Corbin, let's start with you next. What teams do you think were the biggest winners tonight?
I mean, I already brought up Miami, which I mean they didn't really do,
Yes.
I guess, a whole lot other than just get the guy that I thought I had like 6 on my board fall to them. I really did like that fit. I know it's one player, but I just think that his passing, the shot making, the ability, I mean, shot making in a team construct, individually, probably not the biggest fan, but Miami, like playing alongside a Bam, a Tyler Hero, yeah, that's one. Another one for me, the Kings. Didn't think I'd like it, but to get Nick Clifford, where they did, I mean, it's a shame in Sacramento, but like we'll see where they kind of go outside of that. But I liked that fit as well. Lastly, I mean, this was early. Philly. I mean, they went. I personally would have went differently. Obviously, I think we've said it before. In terms of who I would have selected at 3, but they got a guy I think that fits best. I mean, in terms of not rocking the boat, gonna bring it defensively, space the floor. In general, bring that. I like that. Those would be the ones I'd bring up just off the top of my head. Spurs,
So-
of course.
Yeah. So I just put down, if you guys see the ticker at the bottom, the top 5 available, that's based off the Center Hub draft guide that we just released. So go check that out. You can still download that at the-center-hub.com. But I preface that to say, which player, Corbin, I know your answer is probably Rasheal Fleming, because you already alluded to that, but which player, and he's our second best available, we had him 20th overall, which player that didn't get drafted tonight was the biggest surprise to you guys? Conrad, I'll start with you on this one.
I mean, probably Rasheal Fleming. Rasheal Fleming, which I think is probably going to be a lot of people's answer. Just given the expected run of wings that we saw go down, I really felt like Fleming was kind of in the mix, right, with all those guys, whether it's a Drake Powell or Will Riley and everything like that. And, as again, on some previous pods that we all did together, we kind of talked about Rasheal Fleming to kind of be more of like a combo forward and even have like small ball 5 potential. I just really thought, like, again, he just seemed like a type of guy who could contribute from day one, right? Like he seemed like, I mean, make no mistake, he still has upside that he can reach, but it just seemed like what he does now, a lot of those teams in the 20s, the ones that fancy themselves contenders or, like at least playoff contenders, could really add to their front court. So I was actually, again, right before we logged on, I even had to ask you, Steven, like, is Rasheal Fleming still on the board? So I was pretty surprised by that.
I'm going to pivot to Stone now, because I don't want to put words in Stone's mouth, but I know he's very high on Maxime Vanneau. Especially when, like, we were in the pick 28, 29 range, where you had Boston, who needs a big after they just traded Porzingis, and Al Horford's a free agent. Obviously, the Clippers did take a pick. They took Yannick Niederhauser. But, Stone, correct me if I'm wrong, is your response to that question Maxime Vanneau not being a first-round pick?
I wouldn't say so, because as high as I was on Reno, I'm not overly surprised he's in the second round. I kind of knew teams didn't view him the way I did, so I'm not overly surprised by that. Second, Rasheal Fleming, the other name I would throw in there, who I'm actually fairly low on, but I'm surprised didn't go in the first round, would be Ryan Kalkbrenner. I thought between he and Fleming, both those guys just seemed like NBA players to a lot of NBA teams, like just easy plug and play guys that I think they would have viewed or at least perceived it in that way. So I'm surprised that neither of those guys were perceived in that way. I would expect both to go pretty early in the second, but maybe not.
Maxwell, I'm going to ask you the same question. Who is the biggest surprise to you that, didn't go in the first round? Then I'm actually going to put up one of these comments from the YouTube channel.
So we've already touched on two of the guys I still have in my first round tier, Rasheer Fleming and Maxime Reynaud. And I know that we also touched on Kalkbrenner. I think I was most surprised on Adu Thiero. I think like this week kind of leading up to the draft, there seemed like there was a lot of smoke about a lot of teams kind of late in the draft potentially targeting Adu Thiero. I think he has a lot of role versatility in the NBA, and I think he would fit with a lot of NBA teams. So for me, for the sake of not answering a name that's already been said, because I would say Rasheer Fleming, it would probably be Adu Thiero to me, especially with all the noise around his name that was leading up to the draft tonight.
Yeah, I mean, again, all these guys you see on the bottom, they're all within our top 23, 28, top first, definitively first round in our draft guide. So I just put up a comment by Double E. Pell's biggest overreach in recent memory. Maxwell, I'm going to stay with you because obviously you have ties to the University of Maryland and you're a big Dairy Queen guy. But one, I wasn't a big fan of what the Pelicans did yesterday in terms of taking on all the long-term money of Jordan Poole when they had expiring deals. And with that financial flexibility, with obviously CJ McCollum and Kelly Olynyk expiring. But now they do that. You don't know what's going on with Zion next year because, I mean, regardless of what you think about Zion, like he's facing a serious lawsuit. How can you, as a rebuilding team with DeJounte Murray also out for the year next year, give up a completely unprotected first that's the better of you in Milwaukee? So if Milwaukee does trade Giannis, even if the Pelicans are good,
It's even worse, yeah.
There's still a possibility of that pick being top 5, top 10. So is Derek Queen, the Pelicans are walking away with the first round with Jeremiah Fields and Derek Queen. Regardless of what you think of Queen, because I know you all high on him, Maxwell, I mean, what's the overall sentiment you think of the Pelicans giving up that pick?
I mean, I know that we chatted a tiny bit about it during the draft offline, Steven, but I think giving up that type of draft capital to trade two players that don't really effectively fit into the identity that you've tried to build in New Orleans is interesting to me, especially Fears. I think with Queen, there's a little bit more likelihood for him to contribute year one off the bench, whereas Fears, especially with what Willie Green covets in guard play, is a very shocking pick to me. So yeah, I thought the Pelicans definitely overpaid. It was definitely a reach to get both of those players, and I had both of those players ranked in my top 8. So as far as talent, like accumulating talent on the team, I mean the Pelicans, per my board, got 2 top 10 players, but when you look at what they paid to get there, on top of what the identity that Willie Green has been trying to build in New Orleans and the type of players that they've coveted and empowered, especially in the backcourt compared to someone like Jeremiah Fears, it was definitely interesting to me. They had one of the more puzzling nights tonight, and obviously I'm a huge Derek Queen guy, but that fit definitely worries me for my guy, to put it kindly.
Corbin, I'm going to pivot to you next. Given, again, the Western Conference next year, as everyone in this live stream probably could agree with, it, West is loaded. Even with Zion at full health, the Pelicans are, at best a play-in team? Giving up a unprotected first-round pick, again, with DeJounte Murray out for the year, the uncertainty of Zion's health, and obviously his on-court situation, and off the court, I suppose. What's your overall sentiment of what the New Orleans Pelicans did tonight?
I didn't quite understand it. Like you said, that some perspective, you have no idea what that is going to be next year in the draft. That, at the very top, I'm sure a lot more y'all know a lot deeper of this class, but I know at least the first 10, like there's gonna be a few cracks at it. First 5, absolutely. To move up, what? How many spots?
It was
Like,
10. They moved up from 13 to 20, or 23 to 13.
okay, great. Derek Queen better be a star. Like, I mean, I mean, like if you're like, oh, we don't need a star next year, we got a star right here. That's one thing. I disagree, but sure. But like, if he's not, like, no, like right now, this is like some oh, I can't remember, old school New York Knicks where they like draft a big man or they bring in a big man. They have Eddie Curry and they bring in another guy. Like there's so many like bad scenarios that are popping up in my head on this. You have to, I mean, the front office better be sure that Derek Queen is going to be a star. And I don't like drafting a prospect with quote unquote conditioning issues in New Orleans, where you already have a star with that same quote unquote issue. I just, it could go right. I feel like I'm using a reference here, but you know, Doctor Strange said there's probably one way this could go right? So hopefully it does for them. Otherwise it could be disaster city with 1 or 2, you know, misplaced injuries.
For what it's worth, I'm going to get Conrad and Stone's perspective on this as well. I don't want to spend all this time on one specific trade. But overall, what the Atlanta Hawks have done, they acquired Kristaps Porzingis yesterday for not a whole lot. I mean, they gave up Terrence Mann and George Niang and picked, 22 to get Kristaps in town. And they still have a $25 million trade to player exception that, from what I've heard, they plan on using. So this Atlanta Hawks team, like, they're ready to push their chips in with the East wide open. Conrad, any other thoughts on this trade in particular, or is there any other move that maybe caught your attention?
I mean, in terms of New Orleans, like, unfortunately, like everything has context, right? Like, so, but I'm just saying, if you look at the players themselves, okay, cool. Jeremiah Fears and Derek Queen, nice balance, right? Old school team building, right? Draft a center, draft a point guard, your 2 foundational pieces. But then you got to remember, they just traded for Jordan Poole, right? On big money, as Corbin, remind us, Zion's still there. It's just all like these weird factors where, you know, even to use Corbin's analogy, Doctor Strange, a reminder, right? That was 1 in 14 million universes, right? Or 1 in 14 million possibilities. So it gets very dicey. It gets very dicey, which again, like, we'll see. I mean, I don't think whatever they do, if they do anything in the second round, is necessarily going to change this specific trade. I think it's whatever they're going to have to do in free agency and the rest to actually warrant making this bold of a move.
Stone, any additional thoughts? Same question as Conrad. Anything specifically about the Pelicans move, or any move that really stuck out to you in general the last couple of days?
As far as the Pelicans move, the Pelicans have to really believe in Derek Queen to make this process make sense. I'm a little more skeptical on Queen as it is, but I don't think you put either him or Fears in the optimal context to extrapolate the top end value for either player, and that's worrisome when you spend that level of draft capital on both. The 26 class is stacked, and to give that up, unprotected for a team that you seemingly don't know what direction you're going with, is confusing. Queen, to make Queen this star player, he requires a very specific team build. The Pelicans do not have that currently. The Pelicans, I think, are betting on maybe having that, and it's I think a bit presumptive to think it can happen. So I don't like this really at all for the Pelicans, and I like Fears quite a bit. I had both top 12 for what it's worth, but I think you're putting both in a difficult position to extrapolate that top end value. As far as other moves, I think the Hawks have killed it so far. I think their move with Porzingis to get cheap and then buy low on him. But then I loved taking Asa Newell there at 23. I thought that was a fantastic fit. I think he fits alongside all of their players super well. doesn't need the ball in his hands to be effective, and I think can just be an immediate play finisher for them in a way that they don't have a lot of size on the perimeter. And I think I buy Newell's perimeter play more than a lot of people. But yeah, I think the Hawks this week, just in general, have sort of knocked it out of the park.
I'm muted. We already talked about the biggest winners. Obviously, I think we could all agree the Brooklyn Nets have, tonight they made 5 first-round picks, which I think might be a record. Does anyone know that? Because I remember the Houston Rockets a couple years ago took Josh Christopher, Alperen Sengun, Jalen Green. I know they used 4 first-round picks. I never recalled a team using 5 first-round picks.
I don't recall that it's happened before 1990 or after 1990. Before 1990, it might get a little bit fuzzy because the first round got really
3 rounds.
Yeah. There were, and then especially before the merger, I'm not sure, but at least in modern NBA history, I think that is the first time someone's had 5.
So let's exclude Brooklyn because, again, some questionable decision making, at least in our opinion, and let's exclude Portland because, again, Hanson Yang seemed to maybe a little bit of a reach.
I think so.
Well, yeah, but is there another team that we could really talk about as being a loser tonight?
So it's a bit convoluted, but just to throw this out there, throwing in a first round pick to move up 5 spots for the Grizzlies was a little questionable for me. And I get the process going after your guy. I'm not a massive Coward fan. I still had him first round for what it's worth, but I get the process of trying to replace the shooting that you sent out with Bane. You got a surplus of picks that you might have not expected to get in the value of Bane. So I get splurging a bit. Maybe I'm just I'm too much of a tightwad maybe to justify a first for a 5 spot move up in the mid first, but it is still lottery technically. So I can I can understand the process of it. It's just Coward wouldn't have been the player that I would have splurged on personally, but I can understand the process. So I can't get too mad at them, but 5, 1 first for 5, a 5 spot move up just seems a little bit rich for me, but I do believe it was protected. I haven't been able to process everything tonight.
It was Orlando's, I believe, 2027 first. So obviously at the Desmond Bane train, you would hope if you're Memphis, that's a pick somewhere in the 20s, essentially. But again, crazier things have happened. With Cedric Howard, I'm fine trading up for him at 11. I think he fits Memphis great. But were any of the teams between 11 and 15 gonna take him? I think maybe OKC would have at 15, but OKC, Sorb was a great fit. That's probably the potential Isaiah Hartenstein replacement.
I think 12, 13, 14 were all in play, and maybe 15 even to get him, just because from what it seems like is Coward is an exceptional interview. We don't have the full behind the scenes, obviously, but he seems like probably the strongest off the court prospect in this class. And I think that really boded well for his draft stock. So I think for whatever it's worth, there's a strong chance he would have not made it to 16. So in that regard, I do understand, moving up for a guy that you like. It's just, for me personally, that it seems like too much value for a player that I don't love.
So I'm going to start with Conrad for the next question. Biggest second round hot take you have for tomorrow, Conrad? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here a little bit.
That's a good question.
I mean, I have one. I don't know how hot takey it is. You guys could tell me if I'm wrong. My hot take is that Sion James is one of the first 3 or 4 names off the board tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
I don't know. Again, I don't know if that's that hot takey if at this point. Just after watching the NBA Finals and seeing the type of guys OKC have, I could see someone selling themselves on, okay, this is a high-level role player who could defend, who could hit threes, and just move, connective passer, just do a lot of things well.
All right. I don't think this is much of a hot take. It's more as an educated prediction. All right. I think multiple teams will try to trade into the early 30s to take. There's going to be a run of centers, is my guess. Again, supply and demand. I've been saying this all well, we're not, well, I guess we are now in the off season, but I've been saying it since our respective teams have been eliminated from the playoffs. You look at around these last several years of free agency, and I'm not saying that these bigs that are getting paid these contracts are undeserving, but sometimes you kind of look at it, like, for example, the Daniel Gafford extension. Again, I'm not saying he's undeserving. It's like, okay, wow, 20 million AAV for a guy who is, good hands, rebounder, can block some shots, not really, not much of a passer, not really a shot creator. But again, if you do all of those fundamental big things, you'll get paid. So why spend that kind of much money when you can get a guy, a young guy on a cost controlled deal, in no particular order, Amari Williams, Lachlan Olbrich. I mean, he's more of a stretch five, but a Maxime Reynaud, right? I mean, I think if teams are as business savvy as they claim they are, I don't know about Brooklyn right now, but the other 29 teams, right? I think so, right? Because again, we just did a number of offseason previews, and every time we talk about the best free agent bigs out there, it's always the same names. It's like Brook Lopez. So why? Why is there going to be a bidding war on a 38-year-old center when you can just get like a nice, young 20s dude, athletic in his prime?
Maxwell, let's go to you. Any additional hot takes, I suppose, going into tomorrow?
I actually have two. The first is I think Adu Thiero or Micah Peavy is going to be the first player off the board tomorrow. I also think this is maybe a little bit of a deeper cut, but I think Chase Hunter is going to get selected tomorrow in the second round, the combo guard from Clemson. That's a player that I'm really high on. He's in my top 45, multi-sport athlete growing up, 24 years old, plus wingspan, some really interesting athletic tools, really good mind for the game. And I think he would fit into the NBA pretty seamlessly. He processes the game really well. So those would be kind of my two hot takes. I think the Timberwolves, if the Timberwolves don't, I think the Celtics will take either Micah Peavy or Adu Thiero. I think one of those two players goes in one of the first two picks. I'll adjust it a little bit, give myself some wiggle room. And then I also think Chase Hunter is going to get selected tomorrow night. I just think there's too many things to like about him. And I think too many NBA teams, especially teams that might have a spot near the end of that 14-15, maybe even a two-way. I think he's a really interesting guy for a spot like that.
Corbin, how about you? And then Stone, I'll go to you for this last question. Do you have a second round hot take for tomorrow? And then we also have another special guest behind the scenes that couldn't join us momentarily.
Again, not really. I don't know if it's a hot take. I have Chaz Lanier being drafted some of the first 5-6 picks.
Okay.
Like, I don't know. He's supposed to be in my mock draft. He's one of the better shooters. I actually had him like 30th, like one of the best shooters still available.
Who goes first? Who goes first, Chaz Lanier or Kobe Bryant?
Probably
because everybody always has them mocked back to back. So
probably Kobe. I just hear it more than I hear Chaz. So I'm gonna. It would defeat the purpose of a hot take if I said
Kobe just because of age
over that. So
yeah,
that could work too. Yeah, but I just like his versatility. I think he's a tough guy who, could score in isolation, come off screens really well. I thought a team like the Clippers could have used him to kind of juice up their backcourt offensively, but I'm sure there's another team, early in the second round that's going to try to scoop him up. So I guess the hot take should have been from Conrad. They'll go back to back within the first 6 picks.
Stone, how about you? Any second round predictions for tomorrow?
Oh boy, I'm fading fast, fellas. I would say at this point, a hot take. I don't know how much I stand by it, but I could see Reynaud drop into the 50s tomorrow. I think there's, as much as I don't want to see it, I could potentially see that happening.
Stone, what about your guy Noah Penda? I know we talked a little bit about him. That's another guy that I know in the beginning of the cycle you were super high on. What do you?
Yeah.
I mean, I was gonna say, what do you think just went wrong in the first round?
I don't know what necessarily went wrong. I think it seems to me there's just like a case of a lot of the players taken in the first round. There's just more justification for the team builds they have to justify them over Penda, who is somewhat of an ambiguous player in a certain sense. I think Penda, I would guess, is like one of the first guys off the board in the second round. But also I thought, he'd probably go in the late first. So who really knows? But I think there's a pretty strong chance he's top 40 still. I'm wondering if there's a chance that we don't know about, that teams looking at him are potentially trying to stash him and he's just not interested in that. I don't know if that's the case or not, but there's a really severe lack of stash talent in this class, particularly. And I think that there's a chance that Penda might be someone that a lot of teams are trying to do that with, and he's just not into it.
For what it's worth, I would love if the Sixers got Noah Penda at 35.
That's what I was going to ask you that, Steve.
Even trade up. I think Minnesota's going to take him at 31, but like I could see Minnesota maybe going after Rasheal Fleming, and then Charlotte has picked 33 and 34. Maybe the Sixers move up a couple spots and snag a guy like Penda.
Here's the thing to encourage you about the Wolves not taking Penda is Connolly does not usually take back-to-back international players, especially if those are his only 2 picks in the draft.
That's
Just
fair.
not a typical trend of his. So I really think I don't think the Hornets are going to take Penda there. I think they're going to take a player in the front court that they could bring over and probably trade one of those other picks. And I think Penda at 35 is looking really nice right now.
I would love it. Okay, I am going to add another special guest into the live stream right now. You could follow him on Twitter at FinnDraft. And here he is. Finn, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I have mixed feelings about the Baron J pick for sure, but I'm sure we'll get into that.
So let me ask you, and Maxwell himself, he's a Wizards guy, but he's also a Timberwolves guy. So I'm interested to hear the discourse between the two of you. Who is your favorite player to team fit that happened in the first round today?
Yeah, outside of the obvious ones, I mean, Sorber to OKC is huge. The way they have Hartenstein's contract set up over the next 2 years, like he's going to expire, pretty quick here. And Sorber's going to be the perfect guy to supplement him. Incredible steal and block rates. Knows how to flip his hips on screens. Really high field guy who makes some really instinctive passing reads. So I really like that fit. And then Jace Richardson, Orlando is just it's such a banger pick. Like they got their full-time backup point guard at 25, super hyper efficient, low turnover guard that played better with high usage. So I really like that.
So let's talk about what Finn just alluded to with Johan Beringer pick to Minnesota. And we just talked a little bit about Minnesota's pick 31 tomorrow. That's why I think this is relevant. Beringer, I mean, for people that don't know, he's been playing professional basketball for only 4 years. Was a soccer player previously, so he has pretty good footwork, runs the court well, but like he's very raw in terms of he may not be ready, next year to play immediately. But for what it's worth, I mean, I knew Vicini had him in his lottery. For what it's worth, I know Gavoni had him in his. So like they were getting intel from teams that this guy was going to go pretty high. Maxwell, you already talked about how the Wizards did. Obviously with Will Riley and Trey Johnson. Again, the guys I had ranked 3rd and 8th on my board. How do you think Minnesota fared well, and how do you think they set themselves up going into tomorrow?
The Beringer pick was interesting because I was sitting here just chanting Danny Wolf's name, ready for, the Naz Reid kind of safety net, but also some extra creation on offense in the secondary role. I think the Timberwolves would benefit from some high post creation when Julius Randle's not on the floor. Insert Danny Wolf. I just think he provided a lot of things that the Timberwolves could have benefited from, especially at that slot. And then selecting Beringer was definitely a surprise to me. I had him 30th on my board. I was just a little bit lower. I just think there's a lot of tools that are there, but there's still a lot of things to work with. Defensively, I think that he could potentially make an impact for the Timberwolves this year. But outside of a off-ball dunker spot type of guy, or a rim runner, lob finisher, roller type of guy, I don't know what type of value he's going to bring as a rookie in the NBA. So I was a little bit mixed because I definitely wanted Danny Wolf or Asa Newell at that spot. Those are the two highest guys that I had for the Timberwolves at that particular point in time, but definitely not down on it. And Tim Connolly, Timberwolves fans and supporters always trust, and it's a long time Timberwolves supporter. I've been a lifelong Wizards fan, but also a lifelong Timberwolves supporter. Tim has had done pretty well in the drafts as the Timberwolves GM, so I'm excited to see how it works out, but I don't have the highest hopes about Berenjay's impact on the Wolves as a rookie.
Okay, Finn, anything to add to that? And then we're going to get to the Mark Williams trade after this.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts are kind of the same. Joan, especially in recent days, I've done a pretty deep dive on. I think he's the most boomer bust pick in the draft. He led the league he played in block rate. Part of that is that he played a very small amount of minutes, but block rate is like your per minute blocks. So like it's still very impressive. He's the third youngest player in the draft. Even if he's only been playing for a short amount of time in a professional league, it's still very impressive that he's contributing positively, I think. And he's also had field developments throughout the year. You could see there was some progression, like his passing reads, making, instinctive cuts off the ball, being able to, maybe slip out of screens a little bit to get some more easy baskets. Like his catch radius is incredible. It's just with guys like this, their profiles are not very well rounded. They're great block and steal guys. They have, questionable feel, not great touch as a shooter. And where does that get you in the NBA? It either gets you to like a Rudy Gobert level, or it gets you to out of the league in 2 years before the end of your contract. So I really trust Connolly. As Maxwell mentioned, like I think him taking a chance on a guy like Berenjay is huge and tells me a lot about like what the intel looks like with him. And I think people don't understand how elite of an athlete he is. And it was the same situation with the Sengue. Like Jarrett Allen is an example that I've thought of. Really incredible functional athlete. And I think Berenjay comps very well to him as far as like his block, offensive rebounding rates. I think he's like very comparable to him.
Yeah, I had him as a little mix of Hilton Armstrong and Yves Missi for 2000s NBA grinders. So very interesting athletic comp.
Corbin,
Makes me like him more.
Yeah, it's a little deep cut there, but
let's talk about the Mark Williams trade. And I want to get your and Stone's perspective on this, obviously, as the Lakers connoisseurs of this live stream. Obviously, now he is going to the Phoenix Suns for what ended up being pick 29 and 2029 first round pick, which is least favorable of Minnesota, Utah, Cleveland. So potentially not a very high 2029 pick. Did the Hornets undersell Mark Williams? And what are your thoughts about the Suns having no bigs, basically having just Nick Richards, to now having both Carmen Malowach and Mark Williams?
I mean, the Suns were so impressed with the Charlotte Hornets backup big, they wanted to get the starting one as well. That's what I see. Good on them. I saw the trade. I was like, wow, good for Phoenix. Sure. Like, good luck with that one. We'll see. I don't know. Like, you basically gave him nothing. I mean, the cost for him. Sure. Like that wasn't a big deal, I guess. I mean, it's not like it's going to be a really good pick. I would have rather had the draft pick than Mark Williams, but hey, like when he does play, he is productive, whatever. I don't have elaborate thoughts on that. I guess the Lakers did dodge it. I think what the Lakers are going to give up was a lot more than what the Suns are giving up. Listen, I put a tweet out. I'm like, hey, between Malowach, who I like for the Suns at that spot, as well as trading for Mark Williams, I think Nick Richards is back in his comfort spot, which is the third string center. Like now he is where he belongs, and I think that works out really well for them. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Phoenix. They got a lot to work out. I hope Mark Williams does as well. Potentially, they might have a tough defense among their bigs, so that'll be good.
For what it's worth, I'm going to get Stowe's perspective on this next. Because Phoenix had to salary match Mark Williams, they picked up the team option for Vasa Micic, who they were initially going to waive, along with Caleb Martin to get out of the second apron.
There you
So
go.
now all of a sudden, Phoenix may not be out of the second. So, like, not only did they give the only tradable future first rather, for Mark Williams, but like they're still in second apron purgatory, if you will. Stone, what are your thoughts on the trade and also, Phoenix having double bigs?
Yeah, I am confused by this sequence of actions. I think that Mark Williams is like a fine regular season player, not someone I'd particularly value a ton in the playoffs personally. Just defensively, I don't think he has the threshold level needed to be playing starting big man anchor minutes at the center position. But in the regular season, he's fine. He's a minutes eater. He can help you. I think he's best probably as a backup for a competitive team, like a high level backup. And I don't know if I'd want to spend, 2 firsts, albeit low firsts, on that sort of player. But backups are at a premium. And I think that goes to, might have been Maxwell that said that earlier, like there's a center run happening in the second round. I think that backups are not as plentiful as they were even like 5 years ago, backup centers. So if you view Mark Williams as like a top level backup center maybe, or if you view him as a starting level center, I don't understand spending the 10th overall pick on what you view as a backup center with Malawach. Like, you're spending a lot of capital in either direction. One of them has to be the backup. They're not playing together. And I think that's just a lot of capital to spend on someone that you view as not starting caliber. I love Malawach. As a Suns player, I think that would have been a great pick. I think that would have been the long-term pick for them moving forward. But bringing in Mark Williams is interesting because I don't think Malawach gets the starting reps that would be really great to excel his development trajectory. And I don't think they coexist on the court together. So it's just really weird to spend that level of equity on either one of them when one of them probably has to be the backup. So I don't know. I'm confused about it. I don't love this for Malawach's development here. But I thought it was good value to get him at 10 in regards to where he was being talked about. So yeah, interesting play here by Phoenix. And I'm not necessarily sure I totally get it.
Yeah, and again, Mark Williams is going to be due a rookie extension like this offseason. So, like, it's either you give him a rookie extension, which he's going to want substantial money, or play the restricted free agency game with him next offseason. Yeah.
So, sorry, real quick, but that's the other aspect of that is he's probably going to ask, for like $20 million a season or something. Are you paying that for a backup center? And if you're not, you just spent the 10th pick on your backup center. Like one way or another, you're spending substantial capital on someone that is, primarily going to be your backup. So I'm confused by this sequence of actions.
I think Phoenix is trying to be light years ahead. They're playing hardball because, like, Mark Williams, listen, if you don't agree with us, we'll just start Nick Richards again. We've done it before. We'll do it again. It's probably what they think. I have no idea.
Okay. Conrad.
I mean, partly now that we have the benefit of hindsight, seeing how the entirety of the first round played out, I feel like Phoenix misread the board. They misread the draft. Like, I think, right, you make that trade. What would there have been any difference if they had made that trade as pick 29 is approaching? You know what I'm saying? It's not like anything that they traded out. There was no urgency on Charlotte's part. It doesn't affect Charlotte's drafting for the remainder of this round or even next round. I have a feeling that they thought that more centers would go off the board prior to pick 29. And I think they wanted to have a known commodity. You know what you're getting in Mark Williams, you know, at least what you're getting in a healthy Mark Williams, and you're banking on that he's being healthy. But when you got guys like, even though I'm high on him, when you got surprise picks like Hansen Young, when you have the Brooklyn Nets not only make 5 picks, 3 of whom are point guards, right? I think they figured maybe a couple more of those centers that could have, you know, again, been a more than capable backup, you know, or like you said, right? You bring in 2 centers, you got like what, whether it had been like Common Malawach and Amari Williams, or, you know, Common and Yannick Konen-Niederhauser. But I think, I have a feeling they just completely misread it, which is why, as Corbin said, right, you tried to be light years ahead. You tried to jump the gun without really knowing what was going to happen. And that's what I'm saying. I just feel like that it was completely a premature transaction. You know?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Stone. Go ahead.
The other aspect to this is, are we positive that they didn't take Malawich just because he wasn't the best available talent, and then later think that maybe we just took the best talent and now he's flippable to someone who's in need of a center? I don't think that's entirely off the board as a possible strategic move for them, where they didn't really want this pick actually, like in the long run, and they just couldn't move it in time. So they were like, you know what, let's just take who we think the league values the most, and then maybe later on we flip him down the road. I think that's a possibility, but I'm just throwing, you know, other possible strategies out there.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, more of kind of like a, you know, outside view of Phoenix. I mean, Conrad was saying they misread this. I mean, they misread the KD situation and played their hand too early. You know, they misread this draft situation. And, you know, I live in Arizona, so I have plenty of Suns fans in my life. And a lot of them thought that Bradley Beal was going to be on the move tonight. And I told them all, there's no chance, because they played their hands way too early on that as well. And so I think tonight is just another example of the Suns kind of misreading the offseason, the scope of where the rest of the teams are in the league, and kind of what's going on around them. So, obviously, Bradley Beal has not been moved. I would be extremely surprised if he ever gets traded. But in this trade in general, as Conrad said and put it brilliantly, they misread the rest of the market.
I mean, I think the Mark Williams trade, I would have made that regardless of drafting Malawach. I think last year he was productive enough to where the pick they traded was the pick in 2029. That was a really weird swap, right? It wasn't that valuable. It was like Cleveland and Minnesota.
Cleveland, Minnesota, and Utah. But yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, if Utah's giving that, like, they're not, if they're good, like, it's not really going to matter. Like, I don't think that pick gives them a ton of leverage. They traded Micic to match salary. Is that what?
Yep.
So, like, you got like a good player back for some like depreciated assets. I think especially with this draft, there were some good players left at 29, but no one that I'd want more than Mark Williams. Like, even if Mark Williams is not super healthy, he was one of the most efficient rim finishers in the league, even when he was like, his body was apparently breaking down, because the Lakers can just decide to veto whatever trade they want to veto, but whatever. And then come on, like, I think the vision is that Mark Williams is your backup and Kaman is your starter. I think there was enough interest from teams in the top 5 that I, you know, heard prior to the draft that like they're shocked that he was there. I'm even more shocked that teams like Toronto passed on him. Like that was absurd to me. Kaman is like, to me personally, I know people have seen my board. He's second overall. And the reason for that is that he's second all time in net rating amongst any prospects ever in the modern basketball era. So, I mean, I think he's very good, and I think Phoenix got extremely lucky.
I hope to share that optimism in the future. I do. I'm with you about Mark. I'm with you about Mark Williams when he plays. I just think that's a heck of a risk. I mean, if he's healthy, then all of a sudden it's not a big deal, right? Because it's not like he's. I hate to say it again. It's not like he's Nick Richards when he's out there. Like, he's actually like really solid. You already kind of mentioned like his productivity, but like I mean, yeah, that's what I'm worried about. Again, it's also team fit, I guess, or team direction. Like, what is Phoenix trying to do? Like, Phoenix of last year, I don't know if I don't know if I do it. Phoenix of this year, okay, sure, I go for it, I guess. You know what I mean? But if not, then I guess that's when it comes to more of that worst case scenario Stone was mentioning, where it's like often injured. When he does play, he's effective. Therefore, I should get this amount of money, and now you're over a barrel because you did trade for that. You know what I mean? So, but I'm with you. I think it is true not to make Mark Williams look like he's not effective when he does play. It's just those last 3 words or last 4.
I think it's less about what was given up and more about the thinness of assets that Phoenix had to work with, and they used one of them on potentially a backup center when they don't have many assets that are expendable to begin with. And more so to that point is just the amount of money they'll probably have to spend on him, which I don't love, considering you just got like potentially your long-term starting center at pick 10, and you probably have to pay Mark Williams at like starting center salary. To me, it's just confusing more so than anything. It can work, but it's just an odd strategy, I feel like.
Okay. Conrad, anything? Go ahead, Corbin.
Oh, no, I was going to say worst case scenario, deal with Portland because they have the equivalent in centers that Phoenix has in shooting guard. So, sure there's something that can be worked out there.
Nice.
Conrad, anything else you think we need to address?
Not so much. I mean, we kind of just glossed over Brooklyn, but I feel like we could at least share a couple of scattered thoughts. You know? I think we all have the same feeling, but I want to hear them. Right? So
okay, so I'll start with Brooklyn. Jaeger Demon at number 8. Like, I'm fine with that being your guy with your first round pick, but like, you had 5 first round picks, moved down to get him for future assets. I mean, like, who? Just from a value perspective, they reached for him. Traore probably would have been there. What was their next pick? 26, 27, 19, and what, they had 22. Powell was a reach. Traore probably would have been there at 22. Powell would have been there at 26. Like, I just feel like they just kept taking guys a pick too early for where they were drafting, if that makes sense. Like, if they took Demon at 19, they took Traore at 22, Jake Powell at 26, and Sarafa Daniel for 27, and got like Maluach at 8, I think I would be okay with how they drafted. But every single guy felt like, again, I'm a proponent of go get your guy. If like, have the courage to doubt your convictions, but like, when time and time again it just seemed like each pick was a reach, that's more like, okay, you're just not valuing the board correctly, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I just know I didn't watch their entire documentary series to look at the end of the night like this. That's all I know. Like, those 30 minutes of my life, I'm not getting back. I watched with rapt attention as they talked about how serious this draft is for them and how they're the scouts going all over, and this is what they do. I'm sorry. Like, it's like me, I don't know. I can't even draw an analogy to it. That's like me talking to y'all like, listen, y'all, I've been prepping the perfect meal all day. I've scoured the ingredients far and wide. I'm about to cook y'all something crazy. And I come with some PB&J and some orange juice to make it different. Like, what? Speechless.
Yeah. Corbin, drop the mic. We do have a question in the chat. Does anyone have any additional thoughts on the Brooklyn Nets before we get to that question?
I just
please
keep going.
Please,
keep
going. Go ahead.
Please.
I just like, what am I missing with Demon?
Same.
Nothing.
Same.
What is the functional NBA skill outside of passing?
It's what Demon's missing is the question. And the answer is everything.
Out of all of the skills to bet on, passing is the one skill that you need. If it's your elite skill, you need all of the other things to be able to leverage it in a positive way. And he's not very good at everything else. So like, what are we doing? He's like, they in the first part of that documentary, they're like, this is about winning in the playoffs. We want like a playoff basketball. Yeah, we want a contributor in the playoffs. and then you drafted the least functional athlete in the draft. What are you doing? Why?
4 of the least functional athletes.
Oh my God, I forgot Danny Wolf and Ben Seraph.
Who I would have loved if you hadn't grabbed the other guys.
Yeah.
I know. You're gonna play all 4 of these point guards at what? You're gonna do this at the. I think Danny Wolf is a better point guard than he is a center. I don't know. What are we doing?
Again, yes. I just Yegor, like you said, Yegor doesn't shoot well, doesn't rebound well, can only dribble if there's no pressure. But I'm sorry, you're a point guard in the NBA. There's going to be some of that. Like, what are you gonna do? You on one side, Seraph on the other, Danny Wolf looking to get the like plenty of garbage time, I guess, for these lambs to work. But it makes. You said it. That is where I lost it. I'm like, okay, Kasparis, that sounds good. You know, you can make a reach here or there. And I heard Yegor. I went, Yegor? Yeah, I'm done. I'm sorry. I can't talk.
There's better routes to tanking than using all of your first round equity to doing so.
All 5.
All 5. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I like Drake Powell. I do. The other 4, none of the other 4 were in my top 40 on my big board.
Nice.
These are not players that Seraph to me is not an NBA player. Traore, not an NBA player. Demeen, probably not an NBA player. Danny Wolf, maybe a bit gadget player off the bench, maybe, but probably not an NBA player. And I think you just spent 4 out of your 5 first round picks on guys that probably, even if you think they are NBA players, none of them are playoff players. And I think you just spent 80% of your first round picks on guys that can't play in the playoffs at the very least. But I'm pretty confident none of them are NBA players outside of maybe Powell, who's in like the worst possible context for a project player like that to develop. So I think that the one pick they made that I liked is in like the worst context to extrapolate the value that I actually like in him. And the other 4 are just like bad. So I this is, and like I'm trying not to be hyperbolic, but this might actually be like the worst draft night I've ever seen ever. A massive fumble, and I think that it could not have gone any worse for them.
Yeah, I'll just add real quick. I was doing some research. As far as I can see and confirm, based on what I was researching during this live stream, nobody has ever selected 5 first-round picks in the NBA draft before up until tonight. Yeah. So there's that. There's also the fact that we've all been watching a lot of NBA drafts, and I think a lot of us were very low on a lot of these players on our board comparatively to where they were picked. I think there is a very strong case at this current moment, like day of the draft, that this was the worst managed draft ever. The Nets did not really trade up and maximize any value in a trade up with 5 first-round picks, basically sticked and picked at all 5 picks. And as Steven kind of pointed out in the beginning, you know, they basically selected players that I think a majority of us thought they could all select later on or with later selections. So
players
just absolutely baffling.
Players that might not even get second contracts in the NBA, like after the rookie deals at this point.
On my big board, I have multiple
Okay.
of these players not getting second contracts in the NBA. And, you know, I'm a Wizards and Timberwolves guy. I've seen a lot of bad drafts. I mean, I watched a Chris Singleton, Jan Vesely draft. And, I mean, this objectively, you know, on draft night is worse. So
we have a question in the chat from Anthony. First of all, Anthony, just subscribe to the channel. We appreciate you. Anthony's question. With the Heat drafting Kasparis Yakachonis, does that mean we're moving Tyler Hero to shooting guard now?
Corbin's reaction.
Conrad, let's start with you, Conrad. I mean, I was going to say, Yakachonis, one of the things I had him 5th on my board. One of the things I like most about him is that he's an interchangeable combo guard who could pass, dribble, shoot, you know, and he has the ability to play off ball as well.
Yeah. In my opinion, at least in the immediacy, no, I don't think that takes Tyler Hero. It definitely does not take him off ball. but again, that's kind of what we talked about in terms of Yakachonis's evaluation. I mean, you can make an argument that he's decent, like he's fairly good off ball, right? His catch and shoot numbers are pretty good in terms of like spotting up. Now, does that mean like he's now becoming like a shooting guard, and coming off like screens or pin downs? No, not at all. But I think there is at least he has the versatility to kind of have that balance where he doesn't have to be a primary ball handler from day one. But if anything, the Heat have not been trading away these picks these last several seasons, right? So you have Jakachonis now. You have Kel'el Ware last year, Jovic, Jaquez. It's kind of like a 2 timeline approach, don't you think? I mean, like, again, I think Pat Riley has afforded themselves the Heat the opportunity to kind of pivot if they want to, right? I'm just saying, right? Like, maybe the ball really will be in Jakachonis' hands. Just maybe Tyler Hero's not around when that happens. So,
hey, Anthony, if you're looking for, some Yakachonis getting the ball in his hands in early, Tyler Hero's only played over 70 games once in his career, and he's played under 63 times in his career. So he's been prone to miss quite a few games in his 6-year career. And, once he starts missing games, I'm sure Yakachonis is going to be seeing that ball a lot more.
you say that so ominously, man. Like, shoot.
Cue the Twilight music. The Twilight Zone music, yeah.
But yeah, I totally agree with Anthony's following comment in the chat that yes, I mean Jakachonis is an incredible pick and roll point guard. So it really does make sense. I mean, all the more from day one, I'd imagine Jakachonis, he'll get minutes and he'll get minutes off the bench. So he'll have the opportunity to be on ball. But it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting what their long-term vision is. Obviously, they tried to make a play at KD. That didn't happen. Now you hear like all their kind of like backup plans, trying to find a way to get Jonathan Kuminga. So I don't know, right? It's kind of like you want to be competitive, but you're trying to move the timeline, right? More towards their younger guys. So I don't know. That could be in the cards.
For what it's worth, just final point on Miami. I'm in my 30s. I've never really seen Miami tank. Like, the 1 year, what was it? The year Dwayne Wade had that season-ending shoulder surgery or injury, right?
2008, I think. Yeah.
Was that but they end up getting, Michael Beasley, I think, number 2. Like, that's the only time I remember the Heat bottoming out. It's just not going to... But the fact that they were able to get a guy like, again, I have Kasparov number 5 on my board. Like, the fact they were able to get him where they got him, again, is just incredible value, in my opinion.
Agreed. One of the steals in my mind. Yeah, I liked it. I was really high. As he kept dropping, I was more incredulous. So
we have one more question from Anthony, and then we are going to sign off, unless you guys have anything else to add. With Jaeger, I'm assuming he's referring to Jaeger Demon. If he was drafted by a team like San Antonio, who knows how to develop players instead of the team he was drafted by, would your perception of him change? It depends on the player, in my opinion. I so much, like, would Draymond Green ever been Draymond Green if he wasn't drafted in Golden State system? Like, I think so much of it depends on the fit of the player, and that's what teams evaluate a lot of time. How does this player fit in our system? How can we develop him? I don't know. Again, Demon just doesn't have many NBA skills, in my opinion. I had him, I think, 23 or something on my board, so I still had a first-round pick on him just because I'm a little bit of a sucker for big playmakers. But again, like, the lack of athleticism, the lack of shooting ability. Like, we saw Josh Giddey get played off the court in the playoffs, and now he's on the Chicago Bulls where they trade him and then win a championship with Alex Caruso, for what that's worth. So I don't know if Dedmon's a great example of this. I don't know if, like, if you went to San Antonio, I don't think the perception really would have changed too much, in my opinion. Do you guys have any thoughts on this?
I mean, I just think that I think San Antonio's track record of developing players is a bit overrated, especially in the past few years. Like Malachi Branham, Blake Wesley, like they have some real misses.
Keldon Johnson
too. Like, yeah, there's there's a bevy of examples there, right? And then also, like Steven said, what is the NBA skill that you bet on outside of passing? I think you can actualize that a lot easier next to a 7'4" demigod. Like, I think that's pretty reasonable, but does that mean he's a productive and positive NBA player long term? Absolutely not. He would have to do anything else. Can he do that? Probably. Can he shoot? Maybe. Is it likely? No. And that's why we have him like at the end of our first round at the high end. So
Yeah. Anybody else? Any thoughts on that? No.
Same.
Yeah, I
feelings
mean, I
as you
just
guys.
like just a very recent anecdote during the draft when that selection was made. Someone asked me, like, dude, like, how are the Nets going to play him? Like, are they going to? Do they see him as a wing? Are you serious? It's even worse. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not so sure. I'm not too high. I just kind of realized I was looking at my big board that I have Ben Saroff and Yegor Demon ranked back to back at 36 and 37. So that's amazing. So the Nets, again, they have a type, so.
Okay. This should conclude everything for this live stream, unless anybody has anything else to throw out there.
Oh,
So-
I think round 2 is going to be exciting. It's like, again,
Yeah.
like look how many you just had it on the ticker, all the great players, or at least, great intriguing prospects that are still available. This is going to be fun,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say. Go ahead, Steven. Sorry.
I was just going to say, we were expecting a lot more movement than I think we actually got in terms of teams trading up and down. Is that what you were gonna say?
That's what I was gonna say too. That was my that was my biggest surprise of the night. I was like, no one traded in the top 8.
Yeah.
And that's all, like, that was all the trade talk for the last week was, Philly possibly trading down, San Antonio maybe trading down, I mean, the Hornets possibly moving up or down with the Wizards or Jazz or Pelicans. The Wizards and Pelicans didn't even move. And those seemed like the two obvious movers. The Nets didn't even move.
How about Ace Bailey ending up in Utah?
He looks so excited. Oh my goodness, he looks so excited. I'm being so sarcastic. Yeah. I mean, listen, you play stupid games, win stupid prizes. That's what I like.
Wizards fans took a sigh of relief.
As a Wizards fan, did you want Ace Bailey at 6?
No, I wanted Trey Johnson at 6. That was he was number 3 on my board. All my Wizards fans, we all wanted Trey Johnson, Con Knippel, or VJ Edgecombe, whichever one fell there. So, and we figured one of them would fall. So, with Fears or Bailey, we figured one of them would get in there. So, one of those 3 was the most favorable, but turned out being Trey, who was my highest rated. So, very happy. Thank you, Utah.
Yeah, again, I know Julian wanted to discuss when he was on VJ Edgecombe to the Sixers. He was ecstatic with it, and Julian and myself are both from Philadelphia areas. We both have ties and are fans of the 76ers. I'm okay with Edgecombe. It's a little bit funky of a fit, I suppose. Like, you can't play Maxi McCain and Edgecombe together, along with Paul George and Embiid. Like, maybe that's your closing death lineup, if you will. But then, like, Quentin Grimes is a free agent. He's another 2-guard. Like, I don't want to... It's not Phoenix Suns East because, again, a lot of these guys could play together, unlike some of the guys Phoenix has all at the 2-guard. But I was all in on Trey Johnson. So, Maxwell, for that, again, Wizards got 2 of the top 10 guys on my board. I'm envious. But if Sixers get Noah Penda tomorrow... So, dollar bills here. Oh, my God. dollar bills. Make it rain. Noah Penda.
Okay, it's time to go to sleep, man.
Yep, good night, y'all.
It is. It's almost 1 a.m. on the East Coast. So, again, we appreciate you guys following us. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel at the Center Hub _BB. Same Twitter handle, same Instagram, same TikTok at the Center Hub _BB. Go check out the NBA Draft Guide prior to the second round tomorrow. You could get that at the-center-hub.com. Again, all these fine gentlemen, along with 11 other contributors, have been a part of it and contributed. I must be so funny. Everyone's laughing. Rate, review all the podcasts in the Center Hub Network, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Follow me on Twitter at @the_NBA. Follow Corbin at CorbinNBA. Conrad CP3_777. Maxwell Hoops Disciple. And Finn at FinnDraft. Otherwise, we will talk to you guys next episode. Next live stream, Monday, free agency live stream. Go check that out. Same spot you're finding this one, starting at 6 p.m. Eastern. And otherwise, we will talk to you guys soon. Thanks for listening.